Hello and welcome back to Diecast Rescue. Today we're going to work on a Matchbox 5C Routemaster bus. This model has the grey tyres and has no interior, and I think was made between 1961 and 1965. A distinguishing feature of the Routemaster bus was the fact that you had no back door. You just literally stepped off the bus. Sometimes when it was moving, people did fall out of these things and get hurt. And I think they were withdrawn, because I remember going to school in them, they were withdrawn by the early 1970s near to where I lived. So as you can see, it's a very simple model. It's really just got two castings and its wheels, and there's no interior yet on this model. That comes later, I believe. This model has no rivets holding it together, and instead you just merely prise the back of the upper casting away from the lower one to get it off a tongue, and the thing should come apart. So as you can see, there's no interior on the bus at this stage, and it's just an empty shell. Now the axles are very rusty on this, and two of the grey wheels are actually slightly damaged. So what we might do is just restore it so that you've got two good wheels on one side. I do have some spare black wheels, but I don't have any grey ones. If I can get hold of some of those in the future, I'll use them. Considering the scale of this model, there's actually quite a lot of detail on the castings. Okay, so I'm just going to attempt to nip off the rivety ends of the axles and get the wheels off. And I got myself a fake Dremel from Lidl today because they had them and they're very cheap. So let's give it a go. So as you can see, the axles are very rusty. They've expanded quite a bit, and the expansion of the rust has actually damaged two of the wheels. But we should be able to get something out of this. Now I'm using my little rotary tool to remove the rust from the axles. So this is now with the model completely apart. As you can see, there's very few components. Okay, and into the paint stripping phase, where we get the red paint off as best we can. Because the casting's quite deep, it's a bit hard to get some of the paint off the inside of it. Okay, the paint's been stripped off now, and you can see there's quite a lot of corrosion on the model. There's like a lot of a film, so we're going to have to get rid of that. I'm tempted to say hooray for Lidl at this stage, but I must stress I'm not sponsored by them. Okay, so onto the painting phase. Obviously I'm going to paint it red, as in London Transport colours. But obviously being from Birmingham, I could have opted to paint it in the West Midlands Passenger Transport Executive colours of cream and blue of the 1970s, which was known affectionately locally as Wumpty. But I'll stick to the red scheme for the sake of this restoration. And usually I've managed not to spray my hand red doing this, so I'm obviously getting better. Okay, and that's the two main castings painted and sitting on the helping hands waiting to dry. Okay, and on to detailing with our favourite paint, silver or aluminium. And on this model there's only the headlights and the radiator grille are normally painted, so that's what we're going to do. Again, we put a dab of paint on the palette, because if we leave the bottle open the paint will actually dry in the bottle and it'll be a waste of the paint. My memories of travelling on these buses were that they always seemed to be a bit cold, and they always seemed to smell a bit funny because there was like a kind of a wooden floor, if I remember right, which used to just hold the damp from everyone's feet. Also, if I remember correctly, the stairs up them were a bit quite steep, and not for the faint-hearted sometimes, especially if you could fall down the stairs and out the back of the bus. Okay, I've reattached the wheels, and now we're just going to put the two halves of the bus back together. It really only requires a bit of pressure from your fingers to actually get the casting over the edges of the tongues. There you go, it's together. I'll just touch up the little scratch on the step in a moment. Okay, I've got some BP transfers to apply to the bus, which has been the type this type of bus would have had. Although, to be honest, this bus was originally an Esso advertising bus, as there's a slight trace of the E in the original shots of the bus side. Hopefully, no one's going to complain. So these are Waterslide transfers, where if we just put them in some warm water to loosen them up on the paper, and I'll put some microsol, which is like a softening and setting solution, on the bus sides to enable the transfer to stick and conform to the shapes of the bus. The key to Waterslide transfers is just to try and keep everything as wet as you can, so it gives you more chance to slide the transfer around if you have to afterwards, until you're happy with its position. Now we'll just use a brush to smooth out the transfer to remove any air bubbles from underneath. And we'll repeat the process on the other side of the bus. Okay, and there we have one restored Matchbox 5C Routemaster bus from the 1960s. Now, if you've liked what you've seen, would like to see more, please subscribe, and the next video is going to be something a bit different, which I think you'll find very interesting. Okay, thank you and goodbye.